Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Chineri, and this is the Great Big History Podcast. This is History 101, World Civ 1, from Lucy to Leonardo. And in this episode, episode 3, we do Nomadic Warfare. So we talked about nomadic society, hunting-gathering society. Well, what happens when those hunter-gatherers get into conflict with other hunter-gatherers? And that is nomadic warfare. And nomadic warfare is going to dominate warfare for most of history. Even settled people, people who are farmers, are going to be terrified of nomadic horsemen, nomadic warriors, pretty much until a couple hundred years after the invention of the gun, of the musket. And the reason why is how good nomads are at war. So, who's at war? Who is conducting nomadic warfare? Well, it's every man. Every man is a professional warrior. It's what they do. And some women. Every man and some women are professional warriors. That doesn't mean they're soldiers. They're not necessarily trained. They're not rigorously disciplined. They don't have a lot of the aspects of a modern soldier. But every man knows how to fight at a high degree. Why? Because life was war all the time. You are fighting nature for food. Animals don't want to be food. So your hunting is war on nature. Plus, you have to fight other people all the time who are good at killing things because they have to hunt. And believe me, if you could hit a deer running at 20 miles an hour from 50 yards with a bow, you could hit some dude standing there going, "Hi!" You could hit him. So, what is the result of this? Every man who fights, they fight all the time. It's that they are very good at war. Hunting is practice for war. They are excellent at fighting. And fighting is normal to nomadic men. So there's a picture, if you're watching the video, that which does not kill me should run is exactly the nomadic warfare mantra. The Vikings who are on the move. The Mongols, the Huns. The four horsemen of the apocalypse. So, how did they fight? Well, it's liquidation of your competition. Why? Because you're looking for food. Remember, nomads don't care about land. They care about food. And so other tribes that are out there are eating the food that they could eat. It's competition for food. Because if you don't get it, you could starve. And so from the very beginning, nomadic warfare is about destroying, liquidating your competition. Murdering all the people of the other tribe. But not all the people, just the men. You kill all the men because they're useless. You don't need more men. You absorb the women and you enslave and incorporate the children. Why? Well, you killed the men because they're useless. Men could fight. Men could murder you in your sleep. Extra men are just more mouths to feed, and you don't know about their loyalty to your tribe. You absorb the women. Now, what does that mean? It means there is no good way of putting this. It is you keep the women alive and you marry them into your tribe. That's what you do. Is that rape? Yes, by any modern definition, are women going to be having sex with men they did not choose to have sex with? Yes. 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 And yet, those women are not sex slaves. Those women are incorporated. That's why I use the word absorb. They're incorporated. They are married off to men who don't have wives. They are incorporated into the tribe. They become part of the tribe. And their children will be part of the tribe. So they get rights. They get responsibilities. They get to marriage as part. But is that who they wanted to originally marry and the person they thought they would only ever be having sex with? No. They have no choice in that matter. But why do you need to do this to women? It's because women died all the time in childbirth. We talked about this in episode 1. Women died all the time. And one estimate, I've looked for it, and estimates are high. Even if it's 10% or 20%, some as high as 40%, women died all the time in childbirth. So women are constantly dying. So tribes constantly need more women because women died all the time. They need to do the work, right? To get the berries, get the fruits. And so you need more. So you don't kill other people's women. You incorporate them in. And then you enslave and incorporate the children. Why? Because you need someone to do the menial labor. Take care of the animals. Herd the goats. Feed the chickens. You need someone to do the job that a man isn't going to want to do. I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. I'm not feeding chickens. Well, someone has to feed the chickens. So who's going to do it? The women are off picking berries. You're sitting around waiting to murder something, and you don't want to do it. Well, someone's got to do it, so the children, I guess, will have to do it. But here's the thing. Children grow up. So an 8-year-old kid you don't have to worry about, right? But a 20-year-old young man, he can murder you in your sleep. And so how do you maintain access to their labor? The answer to that is you marry them into the tribe. So you take the kid as a slave, he is very likely going to marry your daughter or one of your nieces. That way, he still works for you, but he now has rights within the tribe and connections, and so he's not going to now murder you and lead a rebellion. So he's a slave because he doesn't gain from his own labor, and he's essentially owned by another person. But as they grow into adulthood, they will be incorporated, like the women are, into the tribe. What is the effect? That war is the mass transformation of societies, which we're going to talk about in the next episode. And you have the rise and the fall and the success and the extinction of societies, depending on, do they have food? Do they run into a tribe that just happens to be bigger than them? I mean, we talk about the Neanderthals. 35,000 years ago, they were wiped out. This is a whole human species got wiped out. How? How did they die out? Originally, it was like, oh, they just can't compete. They just couldn't adapt to the Ice Age. No, they were fine. It's Homo sapiens that wiped them out. And what did we do? We murdered the men, absorbed the women, enslaved the children. So that today, a modern Homo sapien has about 4% of their genes are Neanderthal genes, are genes that aren't Homo sapien genes. Because of this liquefaction of competition. Now, when nomads will hit cities, it's devastating because they'll do the same thing. They will burn the city to the ground because they don't live in cities. They'll murder the men. They'll cart off the women. They'll kidnap the children. And they obliterate. The Mongols killed 30 million people in North China. Like that. And they didn't feel any guilt about that at all. Why? Because they were doing it to each other. On the plains, on the steppes. That's what warfare was. So how did they fight? Well, horses changed everything. Nomads equal horses. When they're walking around and walking around and walking around, everything's fairly even. But horses changed everything. Around 10,000 years ago, about 10,000 years ago, humans out in probably Central Asia figured out how to domesticate horses. And they change everything, about 7,000 to 8,000 BCE. First, they give a strategic advantage. The speed equals more area to cover and more survivability. Why? Because if you go into a valley and there's no food, you're not screwed. You can leave that valley. You can move at 20, 30, 50 miles a day. Find another valley. You can make mistakes when you have a horse that people who are walking cannot. You go into the wrong valley and winter's coming and you get snowed in, you're going to starve. But with a horse, you can get out of that valley, go further south, avoid the snows. It's like having a car versus walking everywhere. It allows you to cover more area, find more food, and find it before other people find it, especially those people who don't have horses, because not everyone gets it at the same time. Different groups will get it slowly. We'll figure out how to domesticate and ride a horse, and more importantly, breed that horse to accept a rider. It also gives a tactical advantage, and this is battle. You are 8 feet up in the air. So that means you have physics on your side. When you stab down, you have gravity helping you. When you shoot your bow, if you're on your horse running, charging forward and you shoot your bow, you are moving at 20 miles an hour. That's force. That means that arrow is shot not only with the speed, with the power of your arm, and the power of the bow, right? It's also multiplied by the speed that you're moving at. So the punching power is devastating. It's hard to stab up. It's hard to get a guy off a horse. And so horse, some form of cavalry. Now, how you use that horse is going to change because the technology will change. So we'll start with riding horses, and then we're going to move to chariots. Now, riding horses is what we call cavalry, but settled people, city people, are going to lose the ability to ride a horse. And we'll talk about that when we do city people, do early settled societies. But they'll create chariots where they ride behind a horse. And then they'll make cavalry again, where you ride on a horse. Cavalry is going to dominate warfare until basically the invention of the machine gun, until the 20th century. It's the machine gun that ends the cavalry charge. Even Napoleon had cavalry charges, and he's 1815. There is a grand cavalry charge of 10,000 or so horses, men on horses, at Waterloo. It fails because Wellington puts his men in boxes, and they have guns, and they just shoot the horses. And the horses, not being stupid, run around the boxes instead of into people. So a man on a horse is going to dominate warfare for the next 10,000 years until the invention of the machine gun. The horse also gives a wealth advantage, and any of you who have a car know this. So if you're coming to Camden County College, you know this because the amount you can carry in your backpack is small, right? When you carry something on your backpack, you have to choose the most important stuff. You can't carry everything. In your car, you're throwing all kinds of junk in there. You might have a PlayStation hooked up to some TV in the back seat so kids can play. DVD players, games, stuff from summer, water toys, water floaty things. You got all kinds of stuff in your car. Road trip, you stuff it full of stuff and drive on, right? So your wealth is immensely more. Why does that matter? Because it allows for survivability. Now you could carry more stuff. The horse allows you to carry stuff. Think about women. If you're carrying a baby in your arms, how much more can you carry when you move from place to place to place? Well, now you're on a horse. You have the horse carry this stuff. You could still hold the baby. Now, yes, you could put the baby in a baby Bjorn and a little backpack and stuff, and that frees up a little bit of your arms. But walking compared to a horse is completely different. So suddenly nomads, now the nomads are still poor. Nomads will always be poor people because a horse can't carry that much stuff. But it can carry a tent, it can carry a yurt, it can carry somewhere to sleep, it can carry food, it can carry cheese, it can carry more stuff. And that allows for more survivability. This is a trauma to everybody else, though. If you do not domesticate a horse, the horse nomads will dominate the steppe grasslands. So if you're watching the video, there's this green. That's all flat. That's like Wyoming. It's just flat land. It's 8,000 miles from Hungary to Manchuria. That's flat, high, flat plateau. Perfect for horses. So thus perfect for horse nomads. Well, if you're a nomad who doesn't have a horse, you're at a disadvantage. You're going to get killed. If you're a man, you're going to get killed. Your wife is going to get remarried to some other dude, and your children are going to call someone else Papa. Like, you will be wiped out. And so, do you want to be wiped out? No. And so, what does this do? It pushes people who do not have horse skills into non-horse areas. That's high mountains, forests, river valleys. But those places are bad for food. Those places are bad for hunting and gathering. River valleys are all mud and prone to flooding. Mountains are freezing in the winter. Forests don't have the sunlight, so you have a lot less of everything. And a lot harder to find. So all those are bad. So this is a trauma. So if you're a man on a horse, life is good. Like, you have to fight other men on horses, but every time you fight people who aren't on horses, it's like an easy day at the ball game. You just murder those men, kidnap their women, enslave their children, and life is good. So people run away from them. They run into the forests of Europe. They run into the river valleys. That's the blues of China, of India, of Mesopotamia, of Egypt. But they have a problem. How are they going to get food? They're going to have to find another way of getting food because hunting and gathering isn't going to work. And what they will do, we're going to talk about in a future episode. It won't be our next episode. It says on the video our next episode. But we're going to talk about nomadic society next. Nomadic government, nomadic law. So how do these nomads who have now dominated the steppe, how do they organize their societies? That will be our next episode. Thank you.